and welcome to your Week 10 Fantasy Football Weekly Rundown. I'm your host, Jet.
I'm Avi.
And I'm Julian.
And let's jump right into it. Starting off with start or bench. As always, pick which player to start and pick which one to bench. First up, we've got Raheem Mostert against the Rams or Austin Eckler against the Steelers.
I'm going to be taking Raheem Mostert on this one. Austin Eckler showed great numbers last week, but the Steelers' D has proven to be very tough, and Raheem Mostert is a great end zone threat against mediocre Rams run defense, and so I'm going to be going with Raheem Mostert.
Personally, I'll be going with Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler had a great week last week. While some might argue that's because Brian Robinson was out, I still think Austin Eckler is a very solid running back.
I'm also going to take Austin Eckler, even with the likely return of Brian Robinson Jr. His receiving threat makes him relevant in most leagues. Although Mostert does have a knack for finding the end zone, when he doesn't, it's usually not a great game for him, and he's the clear RB2 behind A-Chain now, as opposed to last year it was merely a committee. Eckler, I believe, will get more touches and especially receptions. I'm taking him. Next up, we've got Wan'Dale Robinson against the Panthers or Jameson Williams against the Texans.
I'm going to go with Wan'Dale Robinson on this one. I mean, Jameson Williams has shown great receiving yards, but he has shown a lot of inconsistency as Amon-Ra being the clear-cut wide receiver one, along with a great run committee of Gibbs and Montgomery. And so I'm going to take Wan'Dale based on the number of short yet consistent number of receptions, especially against a mediocre at best Panthers defense.
I'll also take Wan'Dale Robinson. Jameson Williams is a very solid wide receiver, but there's just so many mouths to feed on the Lions offense, so Wan'Dale Robinson is just the go-to pick here.
I'm going to take Jameson Williams. Even returning from his suspension, I like him over Wan'Dale, who's seen his target share and volume, just his overall workload, just completely derail in the last few weeks. Jones has been less consistent, and when he has thrown the ball well, it has been to Malik Neighbors. That and the fact that Jameson Williams has one of the highest yards per catch out of any qualified receiver in the NFL leads me to pick Jameson Williams against the Texans, who do give up some big plays, and with Amon-Ra likely matched up with Stingley most of the game, they'll need that Jameson Williams threat against Houston to knock them off. Next up, hidden gems. Waiver wire pickups for players that are rostered in 25% of leagues or less in ESPN.
I'm gonna start off with Jonnu Smith, the tight end for the Miami Dolphins. He going against a decent Rams defense, but he's only rostered in 12.9% of leagues, and with there really not being previously a great tight end for the Dolphins with the return of Tua, he looked great. Tua looked great last week against the Bills, even with the loss, but their offense seems to be resurging with A-Chain and Tyreek Hill, and so look for Jonnu Smith as possibly a red zone target.
Yeah, I like Jonnu Smith this week a lot. With the return of Tua, that passing game's definitely going to improve, and he's been a very consistent target for the Dolphins offense since week 5. Hasn't gotten below 4 targets in any game in that span. Moving on to Demarcus Robinson, the Rams wideout faces the Dolphins this week and is rostered in just 12.8% of leagues, despite coming off of back-to-back weeks with multiple touchdowns. His end zone threat and his overall explosive play ability makes him a great waiver wire add, in my opinion. And given that he's rostered in so few leagues and he has such a high ceiling, I think he's definitely worth a pickup in many leagues. Next up, we've got Quentin Johnston. The Chargers receiver faces off against the Titans this week, and he is rostered in 21.1% of leagues. He's been doing pretty well as of late. I mean, coming off the injury, he hadn't played in a couple weeks, but he managed to drop over 20 points, which he has done twice this season in his limited action. So once again, another high ceiling pickup that I like. that is available in most leagues.
Yeah, I mean, he's really shown to be a deep threat, especially with Justin Herbert being able to go deep. He got, I think, more targets than McConkey. McConkey had a down week, but I do think even though he will stay as a wide receiver too, he's clearly shown good chemistry with Herbert.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on now to bold predictions, some interesting takes for the week. My personal bold prediction is TJ Hawkinson has his welcome back game. Second game back from that torn ACL from last year. First game was pretty quiet, though he did have a few catches, I think 3 catches for 27 yards. But this game, he really finds it again against the Jaguars, who obviously don't have a very good defense. I think he scores more than 15 points. He's back heavily involved in the offense, and he breaks out in his second game back from injury. That's my personal bold take.
I'm going to go with another hot take of an offensive outstanding performance, which is Tony Pollard against the Chargers, I believe. Tony Pollard against the Chargers. He showed great numbers this week against the Patriots. The Titans offense has really shown to have found some sort of rhythm, and I do think they will go up against the Chargers with Calvin Ridley leading the offense, with Mason Rudolph, who has shown great numbers. And so I do think that Tony Pollard, even as a receiving back and getting good 6-7 yard carries, should get 20 points or more this week.
Interesting take. I mean, that Titans offense does certainly look better under Mason Rudolph. We'll see who they start at quarterback this week.
Personally, I'm going to go with a high-scoring game for J.K. Dobbins this week. Chargers running back 1, he's coming off a great week last week. I think about 24 points, something like that. He's come off multiple big, almost career-ending injuries in his time in the NFL. But I think that he'll be able to keep this up at least for a little while, and we should be looking at another high-scoring game for J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I like that pick. Dobbins has really hit his stride with the Chargers. One of his first, if not the first season he's had, just completely healthy so far, showing that potential why he was so highly rated out of Ohio State. With Baltimore, he just never got it going. Injuries plagued him. But now in Harbaugh's system with L.A., he's really been able to make a name for himself as one of the premier running backs in the NFL. Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned next week for another episode of the Weekly Rundown. I'm your host, Chet.
I'm Avi.
And I'm Julian.
Signing off.
Can't do. We done came a long way from broke. Don't let you when you risk like this. You don't check the forecast. Every day's gonna rain. Yeah, made a brick by brick. From the streets, but I got a little sense, but I had to.
Hit the rolling stone with the rollie on. Jag portfolio. Be clear, I could fall back 7 years and still there ain't no one ahead of me. Consider it a blessing if you're going to check next to me. 5-star general, OG separate. Born like Edelman, born that celery. Check that cash like the U.S. Treasury. Ah!